morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 5th Community Show webinar. Our topic today is the lockdown and education. Will rural children get back to school when schools reopen? So our panel is made of distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The first one is Mr. Anderson Burora, the Deputy Resident City Commissioner, RCC, of Nakawa Division in Kampala. The second person is Peter Okware. He is the Director of Teachers in Need, which is a civil society-based organization that works to further the cause of teachers in this country. Then we are joined by Edith Nagujja. Edith Nagujja is a high school teacher of English and literature. And finally, we are joined by Irene, who is a lecturer at the prestigious Kyambogo University in Kampala. So, given our topic, I want to introduce the topic with this brief background. On the 17th of March 2020, the President of Uganda addressed the nation on the state of the novel coronavirus, or COVID-19 as it later came to be known, which at the time was a little-known virus spreading in China and parts of Europe. During his address, the President ordered the lockdown of all mass gatherings, including seasonal markets and institutions of learning, from nursery to university and tertiary institutions, effective Friday, the 20th of March 2020, as a means to prevent the spread of the highly infectious virus. The closure, Mr. Museveni said, sent home at least 15 million learners. What he didn't mention is that thousands of teachers, support staff, and other people that earn a living from schools were also sent home and cut off from their businesses. Initially, the closure was supposed to last for 32 days. But as time stretched, so was the closure. It kept being pushed 21 days, 42 days, until it lasted up to the late part of the late part of 2020. To allow the students and people to continue learning, the President promised to give out radio sets to each household and 2 TV sets per village, a promise that never came to fruition. Towards the end of the year, some steps were taken to have schools reopened and to allow for learning of students, yet that didn't last long either. With the surge in cases and confirmed presence of the deadlier Delta variant of COVID-19, the President ordered an immediate closure of schools for 42 days on 19th January 2021. Since then, schools have remained closed. The closure of schools has been blamed for the increased cases of teenage pregnancy, child marriages, a general decadency in morality among children, and increased cases of child labor. And there is fear that the interruption will permanently keep many students out of school or make it very hard for them to settle back in school and get acclimatized in the school environment when schools reopen. We know that people who are supposed to join P1 are now stuck somewhere between top class and P1. There's people who are supposed to join baby class, except for those whose parents really have the means, are also stuck in a similar circumstance. The same can be said for P7, the same can be said for senior 1, senior 2, senior 4, and senior 6. It's just a mixture of problems. Also hard-pressed are teachers and people that earned a living from the school environment, especially in private schools, such as the support staff. Today, we host a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen to look into the issue of school closure. What is the way forward? Should the school closure continue? Should it be lifted forthwith, as some people have suggested? So, I'm going to begin the discussion. The other panelists that are not yet here will join us along the way. In the interest of time, my question 1 will go to Edith. Edith is a teacher, like we said. So Edith, you're best placed to know this, and you should tell us just how seriously does the closure of schools affect students and pupils in Uganda, especially those in rural areas like Napak and Chanamukaka in Masaka?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Godwin, and thank you, CCG, for having us today. The coronavirus crisis hit the world, the entire world, and it hits the most vulnerable sector, education, terribly. billions of learners in developing countries are now stuck home. When we look at our country, Uganda, almost like 15 million children are at home, seated. Some are going through untold tales that we cannot discuss. The closure of schools, we are all hungry to get back to school. We are all hungry to get back to teach, to earn a living. Most of the teachers, for example, teachers on private payrolls, last got salary March 2020. It is such a sorry state. And when you look at rural areas, personally where I teach, the school is in a rural area, and there are so many problems that schools in fat-rich districts that most learners are going to face. First of all, it is going to be very difficult to get those children back to school. You see, the government of Uganda in 1990s fought so hard with different community stakeholders to make sure that every child goes back to school. They created so many government-aided schools to help their children to find affordable education. And when you look at those areas that they've come along fighting with to make sure those communities' children are attending schools, they are the same areas that are even affected most. My worry is, how easy will it be to get these children back to school? It is really going to be very difficult. We are going to have a higher rate of school dropouts, especially if you look at boys who are in senior 2, senior 3, they're now earning a living. They have started earning, there is something they see. And when we look at students that have been actually struggling with academics, there is going to be a lot of force to get them back to school. And when it comes to the girls, they are the most vulnerable. When you look at those areas like Chana Mkaka, they register high rates of sexual violence, high rates of child marriages. So it is so worrying. And indeed, this ban on the closure of schools should be lifted. The government needs to do something. We have so many young girls that have succumbed to child marriage. Some have been married off. In May, I visited a shelter, and I was shocked to find, it was so sad. It was devastating to find a 13-year-old with a 2-month baby. So this is what is happening. Those children in such areas have been highly affected because there is lack of security for them when it comes to gender-based violence. They are highly affected. There are increasing rates of so many forms of child abuse. Others are being forced into child labor. They have to work to earn a living, support their families. Some girls are being abused even by their own relatives. So we have so many now. I think that there is a high level of teenage mothers right now. If you went to hospitals, you'll meet a great deal of young girls going to give birth, and some. Now, when you look at those areas that are very vulnerable, are those young people even accessing proper maternal health services? So it is a serious hit. Not to look at just the modern Uganda, but when it comes to those areas, they are very vulnerable. Thank you so much, Godwin.
All right, thank you, Edith. That was a very plausible submission you made out there. So let's go to Peter. Peter, we've seen demonstrations and repeated calls by teachers and their associations for the immediate opening of schools. As someone that heads a private teachers association that interacts with them often, just how costly has the shutdown of schools been for private teachers, especially again those in rural areas?
Thank you very much, Godwin. Firstly, I appreciate my partner, that is Madam Edith, for the good submission and at least for putting out that call for the reopening of schools, which is very salient. I'm Teacher Peter Okware, the Director of Teachers in Need, and I'm Mandela Washington Alumnus 2021. One of the things that I would start with, before talking about that, let me talk about the reality on ground, and that is, in most cases, you can never ascertain, or you will never find how strong you are if you haven't been faced by a challenge. So this situation has been a litmus test for all of us, and personally, I might not agree with everyone, but I believe we shouldn't just put it maybe on the government alone, but it should be a collective effort whereby all of us, we should find out exactly, were we prepared? And as schools and teachers in the private sector, be it in the village section or in the urban setting, how have we been doing business? Has it been business as usual? And how shall we come up with did we have any plan B as schools? Now, to answer your question, it goes back to generally the schools themselves. Look at us as teachers. The truth is COVID came and it caught us unaware, not only the schools, but the entire world. But it is just a situation that came like the wind to shake to find which sector is firm and which sector isn't firm. So it totally disclosed how firm the private section is, mainly in the education, simply because with the custodians of knowledge and with the cascaders of knowledge, we survive from hand to mouth. And there should be a situation that we're think without the box. How best can we stop the rat cage mode of living? And currently, I believe that education is more of a social service, whereby the government would also have come in place to put up so many interventions that would bail out teachers in the rural areas and also in the urban. The first wave and the second wave. The second wave has mainly been blamed on schools, that it is schools, the schools. Yet schools don't manufacture COVID. We don't manufacture COVID. But it is we all made mistakes. So I strongly believe that in order for the rural teachers to be helped, who have been highly affected, plus the urban teachers. And the truth is, with the urban teachers, there are so many interventions on how a person can survive. So many have engaged into the homeschooling, which is also at least supporting others to survive. But with the person in the rural setting, most of them, if you don't have a garden, it simply means you are hit so hard. So it would be my humble appeal for our government, not only government, but all of us and the stakeholders, to put up ventures and measures that can enable teachers not only to get what to eat, but also what to do during these perilous times, which are very hard from all angles. Thank you very much. I hope I've answered it well, or if there is something which I've missed, kindly you can tell me, Godwin.
Oh, that's okay for now. We shall get back to you. So you've highlighted the plight of teachers in these times with schools.
Oh, Godwin, then a moment.
Okay.
Godwin, yes, a moment. Kindly, yes. Kindly, you should at least, yes, it would be salient if at least you tell us exactly the package of minutes per, let me say, per session, which I have, maybe which Edith might be having, Anderson, so that might not use less or not using a lot. Thank you. Okay.
The general rule is that there are 5 minutes, but you can request for more time if you submit and you still have something to say. So thank you very much. Okware, you've highlighted the plight of teachers, and Edith, before you highlighted the plight of the students and pupils in these times. So we have been gratefully joined by Anderson Burora, who is the deputy RCC in charge of Nakawa. So Mr. RCC, you're very welcome. And the next question is actually yours. So as someone that sits on some of the government's committees that are tasked with charting the best path for Uganda out of the COVID-19 debacle, and what does the government end game as far as schools opening is concerned? What does it look like? I mean, at what point will the government consider it too safe as far as COVID is concerned, or too dangerous as far as the continued closing of schools is concerned, to say, okay, let's have the children going back to school? Anderson, that is your question.
Hello, I hope I can be heard. Thank you, Godwin.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Godwin, and the organizers of this arrangement. It's unfortunate that I joined when most of the panelists have submitted, and I was unable to listen to most of them, but I will restrict myself on the question raised. What we are dealing with, first of all, is not a secret or private matter. It is an arrangement that is public. It is a disruption that is public. And as a government, government does not work like a private sector, or does not work like any individual whose missions and visions are restricted to their business and interests. Government's roles, and most especially like in terms of education, you realize that it is hard to say that you're going to open schools in, let me say, Chiliandongo, where you have not registered so many cases, and you leave schools that are in Kampala, where it is the epicenter. Because the curriculum is one, the arrangement is one, the time frame under which children should cover a syllabus is one, and everything is the same. So that in terms of maybe economic and political and social terms, you end up restricting everything. So it is not that government has failed. It is not that government is not in charge, but we learn from the past mistakes. And learning from past mistakes means that you have to be cautious and tread carefully once you're going to do what you have done before and you have not succeeded. We had children go back to school after the first lockdown, and we are starting to lose children. And children were starting to die. Parents, it was becoming costly on the side of parents and the side of government. In the event that we have not been able to secure even vaccines for the public, and most of our children use public means, so they still become vulnerable to the public that can injure them. And this means that it has to be a thorough decision that has been taken and tested to say that we open up schools. It is true, time is going, but you see, you cannot have time and life in the same discussion, whereby you're saying that we save time by putting lives at stake, or you say that we put lives at stake and save time. The vice versa, the other way around cannot work. And if that is the discussion, that we can put lives at stake, at the end of the day, who is accountable? Is it the teacher? Is it the parent? Who is accountable for the lives lost, or for the negligence, or for not having thought about it and took decisions accordingly? It still goes back to government for not standing tall towards what is right. So my question here is the accountability part of it. Who is to bear the costs? If it is government, then I think it is important that we let government work within the means. If what it has arranged bites, no one is going to pinpoint, because government is mandated to, at all costs, do what is right, at all costs, because it has the machinery, it has the authority, it has all tools to enable it to do what it is supposed to do without excuse. So the pressure we are trying to mount, yes, it is deserved, but we have to put a few things into consideration. the safety of teachers themselves, the safety of parents themselves, the safety of those who are even at home, but everyone has to be accounted for. So government, the discussion is ongoing, and now you can see that even the vaccines are directed into a specific direction. For example, vaccinating the most vulnerable. The other time there was a window for teachers whereby teachers themselves refused to be vaccinated because some people now are applying their rights against the rights of others. I'm happy my friend Edith, I've not talked to her for a long time, but she's there. Some teachers refused to be vaccinated, and they are exposing themselves and the children, or the students that they are teaching. And you see, the discussion here should be what direction. If a teacher has refused to be vaccinated, what do we do to that teacher? Because he or she is coming to class, she's not in a restricted area, no. She comes or he comes to school from work using the same means. This person is exposed, but he's coming to children who are vulnerable. So all of these discussions are things that we have to put into consideration. Yes, Godwin.
Before you proceed, if you could help us with the statistics. We hear that the new COVID variant is as deadly to young people as it is deadly to old people. But is that, do you have these figures? Can you tell us, is that just another propaganda, or it is something that is real, that the variant we are battling, the Delta variant, actually kills students too? Because there are not so many cases, if you just look into the community, of very young people that have died of COVID-19 or been affected severely.
No, now the tricky part with the new variant is actually not killing the young and the old, but the way it spreads and the way it affects is it is the manner that is scary, because you don't show so many signs and symptoms. By the time you realize that you are sick, it is actually in a critical stage. And if you look at right now, there is a semblance of some kind of studying and free time to run after a few things. But the new variant, the way it spreads and the way it affects, no one has enough scientific statistics to actually pin it against the first COVID, virus, the one we know, the one that we are all exposed to. But what we are sure of is that the symptoms are not the same. And most of some children they have asthma, some have these chronic diseases, some are still young that they have not been exposed to the tropical diseases like most of those who are aged. So the scare is just the study under which this has been able to be studied, but not that every one of the children. Yes, the children can get sick, the old can get sick, but what we are sure of is if I have symptoms that are detected earlier, and the symptoms that are not detected at the earliest stage, then you make it wholesome to everyone to be on their own. So that is usually sometimes how you can protect the public than segmenting each. Now this is for the old, that cannot help. And actually, I don't think it even applies in the public health arrangement.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to ask you the last question before we move to the next panelist. And it is a follow-up question. So if before you came in, Edith elaborated a very gruesome picture. She says that young girls are getting pregnant, boys are being sexually abused, and girls sexually abused. She fears as a teacher that it is going to be very hard to push back to school kids that have since gone on into making Rolex, selling things on the streets and all that. So isn't that, how delicate is this balance? Because while you want to save lives, and the government does indeed have a duty to save lives, there is no excuse for that whatsoever. What lives being lost, livelihoods being cut short by the fact that children are now back at home other than being in the environment that is safer for them, and that is the school environment. So how do you balance these two?
I think this balance for government alone, this balance is for everyone. Parents should be able to take care of, to participate in making sure that some of the far-fetching conditions are controlled. Secondly, it is the conduct of the public. I think besides being children getting pregnant and the likes, I think this is where the community itself should come out, maybe to give lessons to those who are participating in such acts. There is no way government is going to come and start regulating people who are having sex and at what time. There is no way government is going to wake up and say, now I have a radar on each and every girl so that they don't. No, this is a role we are trying to shift. This is a parental responsibility. This is a community responsibility. And if we are running away from the real fact of who is responsible for what, I think we are doing a very big and costly mistake. Parents should be in a position to have a grip on how their children are conducting themselves. Communities should also have disciplines. If someone has been able to impregnate a student, why don't we wholesomely gang against such acts in the community so that it is a community discipline and it is known? Some things really, we spend so much time, we waste a lot of time talking about them, yet we are not ready to act. This is, Edith should be able to have, some kind of studied, arrangement produced to protect children. Children, even before COVID, have been getting pregnant. Just that this time it has exposed because it is the talk. But children have been getting pregnant. It is for a fact that even teachers have impregnated children they are teaching, their own. It is for a fact that there are even parents who have impregnated their own children. It is for a fact that even within community, so this vice is not new because of Corona. It has been happening, just that we have shifted the blame. That someone called government should be there watching over my children while I am doing business, while I am at work, while I am drinking. Who is responsible? If parents are running to bars, running away from their families, running away from their wives, running away from their children, if you can run away from your children, how can you come and start blaming government for the girls who are getting pregnant? I think some things are moral things, some are communal things, some are as a result of laziness on the part of parents to take shape of what their children should be.
Okay, thank you, Anderson. That was also elaborate. Let's move to Edith now. Edith, I hope you're still with us. So I want you to shed some light into the aspect of online learning, the e-learning. Just how effective has it been as an alternative to the traditional physical classes in these times when social distancing is encouraged, especially in the rural areas? Has it picked up? Are the children using it? Has it failed and all that? So Edith, that is your question.
Thank you so much, Godwin. Well, I wouldn't say that e-learning has picked up in schools that are in rural areas. If you go, for example, as Ministry of Education, they've played their part. Even schools have played their part. They've uploaded classwork. We have uploaded any education for academic work that is going to help our students. We've put it on our website. But for those who can afford to carry out e-learning, they'll definitely download the work. But when you look at, if you look at areas like, let me say, deep down in Moroto, in Nakapilipiriti, where people don't even know what a smartphone is. So such learners, we cannot even assess e-learning there. Sincerely speaking, when you look at districts that are, that are so deep inside, schools that are inside, even in Uganda here, if you go to areas like Gomba district in Kabutemba, I visited a certain village and it was really remote, and there is a school, a primary school. But as I was sharing with the head teacher, and the head teacher was telling me we cannot teach. Maybe we can help students or pupils that are actually within, if we land on them. So I wouldn't say that e-learning is very effective compared to the traditional. Hello, Godwin, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. You seem to be breaking, but you can continue submitting. Hello?
Yes, so, hello.
The last part broke off and we didn't get that.
Yes, so when we compare the e-learning in rural schools, what I know, it is working for the modern schools, for the schools in urban areas. But when it comes to the rural setting, I do not think e-learning is working for them. I do not think, even where I teach, there are some students that are unable to get to access. Number one, if you want in e-learning to be very effective, look at the data charges. Can parents in rural settings, okay, let us assume they have smartphones, can they afford the data charges? And this material, when we are uploading this material will take even 5 GB to download. Yeah, can parents afford to buy data bundles? I think it is only successful for schools where parents really afford this kind of system. But if we are talking about rural areas, it is so sad that they cannot afford learning at this time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Edith. Fortunately, we've been joined by our fourth and final panelist, and that is Irene Wadiko. So without further ado, Irene, when you get here, the first thing we do is to put your question to you. So I'm going to put your question to you, Irene. So we've all read cases of girls getting pregnant. We've read cases of abuses. We've read cases of violence against children and all these other bad things that are directly linked to the closure of schools in one way or another. So I just want to understand, if the government said schools are opening tomorrow or schools are opening next month and there's no more COVID, we are going to continue normally. How many children do you think will not go back to school because of circumstances that happened during this period that will make it more or less impossible for them to rejoin school? And how many children will join school but find it really, really hard to get back to the school environment to learn and concentrate fully? So Irene, that's your question.
I don't know if you're getting me. I've tried to unmute.
Yeah, we can get you.
Okay. I'm one of the teachers who are teaching children. I tried to connect with them. Even these are yet university students. They had so many challenges with online, but putting that aside, as you've noted, since last year, schools have not been opened. Many girls have got pregnant, others have moved into people's homes, some are working as maids, some have already forgotten schools. This one is you can even observe it from neighborhood and everywhere. So to me, because of this lockdown, we have lost so many girls. Many girls are already victims to this. So as you've said, if schools open tomorrow, I don't think numbers of girls going back to school can be many. We can just see the previous UNEB exams that students sat. Many sat when they were pregnant. And those are the ones who were allowed to go back to school. What of those ones? We have this African culture, especially where I come from. Once a girl has conceived, it's like parents were already tired of you. They just give you out for marriage. So I'm sure there are so many girls who have already entered marriage because of such kind of cases. So to me, when schools open, the number of girls in school is going to drop, going to drop so much, because really many girls are already victims of circumstances. I don't see it as positive at this moment, but we will not say that schools will not open because of that, but that is one of the effects that I'm actually anticipating due to the lockdown. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Let's move back to Peter. Peter, are you still there with us?
I'm there.
Okay, this is your question. Arrogance or bitter truth? What came to your mind when you had comments attributed to the finance minister? Comments he hasn't denied to this very day, by the way, advising private school owners distressed by debts to sell off their school property and stop bothering the government to help them. What came to your mind at that point?
Okay, thank you very much for that salient question. Firstly, let me appreciate Anderson for his submission. Anderson talked about something which is very, very important and that we should all take on with our hands open. He talked about basically where today in the morning I had a conversation about the same. There's a civil society leader who called me and was telling me about the way how people are getting pregnant. Tell those ones to go out. Sorry. The way how people the girls are getting pregnant. Then I told him one thing. It is our community responsibility and the parental responsibility. So that is something which is more important than anything, because at the end of the day, everyone is shifting the blame, but the repercussions are going to be extremely very immense for all of us if we don't take it as our community responsibility or collective responsibility. Now, to come to the point, to the issue of the minister's statement, I think, again, I'm going to answer it in response to what Anderson said. Anderson also, he talked about shifting the blame. I believe that is the cancer which is totally killing our nation. We have that cancer of shifting the blame. Each person will always find someone to blame when things go astray. Because at the end of the day, I don't know where our ministers went to school. I don't know how they became ministers. I just exactly can't tell. But if a person knows the education we have, not only in Africa, but in the entire world, be it in the US, be it in Europe, schools are regarded as social services. And even if when they are private schools, they are 100% regarded as social businesses. And all governments, the US, in most cases, I wonder with what is wrong with our nation, not as leaders, but all of us. You find that we give references to others when things are in our favor. But when they are not in our favor, we don't even want to talk about their references. We just talk what we want to talk. Because the UK government, which the president, the ministers have been talking about, the US government, they have all supported the schools. They have all supported the education sectors with a lot and a lot of money, in billions in euros, billions in dollars, billions in pounds. But what have our government supported the schools with? So I believe it was just shooting himself a bullet in the head. He shot himself. And at the end of the day, he created a very bad picture for his government and our government at the end of the as a whole, in a way that if you tell a person to sell their property, it simply means that you are just telling them leave the business. And who is going to buy it, yet all people are not financially fine? It simply means he might be saying it when they have an hidden agenda or an hidden objective. So I believe it was uncalled for. It was very unprofessional, unfriendly, and a statement that creates so many unanswered questions that most of us we are still thinking, why that statement? So Anderson, as I finalize, as we all, I'm sorry for sticking on Anderson, simply because I strongly believe that you are now the representative. Blame, and we should learn to take responsibility when things go astray. I think that is the cancer which is eating our nation. It is eating marriages, it is eating families, it is eating communities, and it is eating all the leaders in the nation. Everyone will always find a person to blame. I wondered even when the Minister of Health came out and also blamed people. Yes, she conducted a rally, which we all saw, and she said that people, we are reluctant, we are complacent. I said, wow, what is happening? So before we people as a nation get into the boat of appreciating and taking the blame, we don't have a nation. We're just in confusion. So I'm sorry if I'm harsh, but that is the naked truth. Thank you.
Okay, the naked truth is actually what we want. When we come in the morning, we hope that we get the naked truth. So, Mr. Okware, before you go off, I have a follow-up question. You said, who will buy the schools? Everyone is in distress. But the truth is, some school owners, some school directors have become creative. I have seen a couple of schools turn into rentals. I have seen some schools turn into poultry farms and many other things. Yeah. So what does this mean when school resumes tomorrow? Yeah. Now that, well, I stopped in P3, but the school has since been turned into a poultry farm. What will that mean for the learners in this country? You can take that in 3 minutes.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, it's a big dilemma, or it's a situation that will call for the passion and loyalty, because if a person goes into poultry and they find out that poultry is more recreative and it fetches a big profit margin than any other venture, they can never come back to school. So at the end of the day, who is losing? I simply believe that our learners are the ones who are going to lose, because in certain areas, schools are not highly accessible. So if a number of them go out of business, it simply means that those ones who remain in it, they are going to monopolize. And at the end of the day, where there's no competition, not the unhealthy competition, but where there is no healthy competition, there's no growth. So we shall find that there will be a lot of complacency and relaxation, or whereby most schools will think that they have made it and they won't do exactly like what they are made to do. Then the other thing, the ones that have turned their schools, the teachers, or the schools that have been turned into other ventures, it is also a very big indicator and a big blow to our nation. I'm sorry to say that, because if the education, in education, we have a motto that we are because the nation is because we are, with the teachers. And at the end of the day, they say, the government always, in all the meetings that we have had with them, so many that though you might be working for private schools, government, the children.
Mr. Okware, we can't hear you now. Okay, let's give Mr. Okware time to sort himself and then get back to the discussion. In the meantime, I'll move to Anderson. Mr. Burora, first of all, I want to respond to what Mr. Okware said. Do you agree with him that the minister's statement was uncalled for and made in bad faith and shouldn't have been made in the first place?
Godwin?
Yes, please.
I think Wadiko is being emotional for nothing. Wadiko, like any other Ugandans, are used to getting sugar-coated statements.
Anderson,
hello?
It's not Wadiko, it's Mr. Okware. Mr.
Okware.
Wadiko is another panelist.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Okware. Okware is used to, I don't know whether he's a primary teacher or a secondary teacher, but primary teachers are the ones who are known to find every reason to make children understand I think it's by training. But I think we just chose to misunderstand the minister. Maybe because of his wording, but there is a fact in it. And to me, I want to take the fact in it. the fact in it is that if government is to bail out of schools, everyone wants a bailout. But also we need to appreciate the fact that at the moment, even the country's economy is at stake, that you cannot take out everything in the reserve and you think you can remain standing. But also, it is not only schools, even businesses are collapsing. Businesses need money also to recapitalize. Just that with businesses, maybe there is another way they can come out of the equation. Recapitalization has also a ceiling. It is not something you can wholesomely come up and do. Usually, those who are recapitalized are usually those that they consider there is a baseline, there is a consideration, most especially how many people are you employing, how much taxes are you giving in terms of your production, how much do you contribute to the foreign exchange. There is a lot of things that are considered. There are so many people who can't pay rent now, and they also would like for government to pay for them rents. Government also is losing out because it is not making money. All the taxes are almost cutting to half. And businesses that, since they are closing, it means also there is that, pipe that is being pulled out of the National Collection Fund. So let us not discuss some of these things selfishly. Like, I am discussing this in my sector, for example, the education sector. But the private sector is equally hit. There are people who have not been there are people who have closed bars, ever since. The entertainment sector, every day you see them in Uguru. They want to bail out.
Anderson.
So many things. So I think...
Anderson, that wasn't your main question. I'm going to ask you a main question, but just to put you back to that question so that you can get a final answer. He says that schools provide a social service. Yes. I'm sure that we can live without musicians for some time. We can live with some minimal entertainment. But if schools are sold off, because the minister gets angry and says, sell off and let's move on, without you, we don't care. He says that is a problem, because for him, he thinks that schools, given their very nature, are something government should take interest. That let's say, okay, government wants to bail out. They are artists, they are businesses. Schools should be one of the prioritized areas that government bails out, because then it is working for the betterment of its future generations and its future as a country. That was his submission. Also, I don't know what to make of that.
I think the entertainment sector equally, I can involve myself in giving answers for. I am also discussing this given my understanding of how things work and how things may turn out if this comes having served in a public office. And that appreciation should be put in consideration too. Government schools, to me, I would selfishly say, just as is fighting, this is my view, this is not a government view, this is not a government position, and I shouldn't be quoted out of context. I am discussing this. I would, instead of bailing out, because equally government schools are not in good shape. So instead of getting billions of money and capitalize private schools that have been working on profits and taking all the profits in their custody, even some, not even paying the taxes. I would say, let's put money in public institutions to match up to the standards. Because why? Why do children go to private schools? Sometimes it is enough space. Sometimes it is education, quality of education. Sometimes it is decent buildings and space for children. The inability for children, something that enables children to learn in a much more spacious space. So I would make these specific arrangements for public places, for public schools, to make them have that enabling environment in order for them to serve the same purpose. However, I'm not saying that the private schools should go and hang. No, I am saying that this situation should give us a lesson to learn. That where I am getting these profits from my private business, I should create somewhere a pool whereby even if something happened, I have raised enough money for the business, not the individual. Because here it is the individual, the owner of the business, who is well off than the business itself. That when the person is in a bad shape, the business is in bad shape. This is a very bad culture that we have created in terms of creating enterprises. Businesses should be self-sustaining, that they can sustain themselves, let me say, for 3 years without even looking into them or even looking elsewhere. But what we do here is, I have a school, the school is building real estate, the school is building this. I have not given enough time to build this school to full capacity in order for it to sustain. These are lessons we must learn. These are facts we must put to our fingertips. Because of this pandemic and the fact that we have our hands tied now, that no one has enough solution for everything, we need to look at this critically. We need to have answers that are not fetched from far, but even looking into our personal conduct as proprietors, as directors, as shareholders. This is a lesson we must put into consideration. Okay,
let me now ask you this question. You're saying that the schools should learn from this going forward.
Not schools only, but even other business.
Okay, we've had COVID for almost over a year now, and I'm going to ask you, is the government learning? For instance, the government has reneged or failed on its promise of ensuring continuous learning by using e-learning. It promised to provide radios and TV sets. The government has not disputed that to this very day. Last year and early this year, the government proceeded with general elections, even against advice of experts that the elections would become a mass spreader of COVID-19. We see today that areas like Chikubo, mass gatherings are open. We see downtown, big shops and so many people down there, but schools are strictly closed. So has the government learned? Shouldn't the government have prioritized the opening of schools last year, done its research on how best that can operate, and then open schools? What do you make of the fear of some people that the way the government has conducted itself as far as schools is concerned shows that the government is very less concerned about the schools in Uganda? And some have gone as far as to say that it is because the children of people in government are either out of school because those people are very old, or they are educated abroad, or they are studying in Ugandan schools that can afford e-learning and they're uninterrupted, unlike the kids in Chanamukaka, Napak district, or somewhere in Kapile Byong.
First of all, we also need to appreciate that the internet spread in this country is still odd. It's not even. That even here in Kampala, all of us here, we are in Kampala, but you can see even some of us, our connections are not clear. We are breaking. And even when not everyone is logged down to the grid, like not everyone is using the internet. So the issue of the internet should not be discussed as if it is like the sun, whereby it is light shining to everyone, and only those who don't want it can hide it in the shade. Our internet spread, Uganda is not like America. Uganda is Uganda in its uniqueness, and we should appreciate the uniqueness of Uganda as it is. So if you say that you want Uganda to work like America or UK, even when UK has had a much bitter blow than Uganda has had, it means you're discussing this in isolation of the facts. So e-learning, I am convinced in terms of internet is not yet possible. At some TV station, I tasked one member of parliament to go back to parliament and move a motion to make sure that they give government a supplementary to ensure that they spread internet even beyond COVID. Because now we can see how important internet is. Now that is one. Two, radios and TVs. The same thing. There are areas whereby you don't have enough masts to spread the signal to each and every home. I think there has been a laxity in the past whereby information collection is to the privileged or those who need it, but not to all. Now that we are in a situation whereby information dissemination must reach even to the last person at any point of the country, given the challenges we are facing. Now that we are caught in a state like this, we don't think that things we must achieve in 10 years, we can achieve them in 1 year and everything is good to go. Let's not put ourselves in such foolhardy that it is possible. Even if you had money today, you are not going to lay cables in 1 month. And they cover Napak, they cover Kotido, they cover Zombo, they cover everywhere. It is not possible.
Anderson.
And,
okay, the internet aside.
Yes, let me finish this point. Let me finish this point.
Okay.
It is not possible. It is not possible and we cannot achieve it. The fact that we have to appreciate the situation we are in. The situation is like that and we have less we can do about it. You will give people, but even radios, even if you give a household, everyone, you realize that we don't appreciate these terrains at the same level. I always give an account of my father who told me after P7 that you can go and graze cattle. After all, I didn't go to school. I am also here. Have I died? You will find another parent who is sleeping. I have women here in Nakawa market who sleep in the market, who do whatever it takes to make sure that their children go to school. So we appreciate this differently. You'll put a radio in someone's home and you find a father locking this radio in his room. He will start saying, now we don't have batteries for these radios. These things are a fact because at least I come from a background where all of what I am talking about is much more appreciated, yet it is unprecedented. So the issue of COVID and e-learning, we must appreciate that it is not absolutely what we need. I'll give you another example. When we had cameras to fight crime, people thought now this camera can even chase a thief up to his home or even the drainage. So you don't need anything else. But even when you have a camera now, we have realized that cameras are not enough in as much as they are there. We need another technology in addition to that to do facial recognition, to do structural arrangements of making sure that if they have a structure, they can run it in the system and have it zero no Godwin. So these challenges are real, they are there, and we cannot solve them. I am being honest. You cannot lay a cable now and it covers everywhere in 1 month. It is impossible. Technically and scientifically, it is impossible. What we need to do now is we need to wake up that COVID has, unaddressed us. How do we now cover ourselves? By majoring in majors, not majoring in minors. By taking central issues as central issues, but not looking at them as if we are giving a favor. Lastly, as we talk about education and economy, opening Chipubo and other businesses, you see, there is no way a child will leave parents at home and they go to school when parents are not working. For a child to go to school, there are some inabilities. Parents should be able to pay school fees. What to feed on in the first place, even the children themselves. When they go to school, teachers or administrations demand that you come with either 50% pay or you come with the specific amount of percentage you must have paid to school. So how will these parents pay when they are not working? Where are they when we open school? What is going to facilitate the processes of school? How are these children going to reach school when the public transport is locked? They cannot. And when these public transports, they will end up in Chikubo and Tax Park where there is a gathering because that is their last destination. So some of these things, secondly, the economy must function against all odds. There is no way we are going to fight COVID with a broken economy. We can only fight COVID with a stronger economy. If the economy is strong, we can fight COVID because we have means to fight. But if the economy is down, I am telling you, we are all going to die because we won't have means. As we speak now, only the G20, we are able to get zero interest loans amounting to about 20 trillion US dollars. There is no third world country has that opportunity. There is no even second world countries that has that opportunity. All you will have to do is to suffer locally. You will have to you have to bite yourself in order to feed on what you must feed on. These facts put us in a position whereby everyone must appreciate the challenges we are going in, or we are going through, so that we can remain afloat. I like it when I think it was Okware said that blame shifting. Yes, shifting the blame actually in society does not mean that there are no answers. The answers are there. For Kasaija to make a specific statement, there is a reason. But also, for me, what I can do, I should be able to do it without expecting someone else to do it. And this is where we must come together as a country. Yes, we went in an election, but you very well know that there is no vacuum in democracy. In leadership, there is no vacuum. Two, in this case of COVID, whereby we are not certain when it will end. Until when can we postpone certain things? It is next to impossible to say that we are going to delay certain things. And when you delay, you create a vacuum, which is more costly than solving it the way you should have solved it earlier. Lastly, those in power make decisions. This is for a fact. And they make decisions that are in their favor. Let us not sit here and say that there is no interest peddling in some of the things that are done. Interest peddling will always be there. Even you where you are, if someone, Godwin, came and just wanted to kick you out of that chair of moderating this debate, you will have to fight back until you are given specific reasons as to why. So interest peddling is real. Lastly, someone talked about the taxes on the internet. The taxes are not fair, and I am this person who even tells my government that this is not fair. The taxes are not fair. There are so many ways through which we can tax. If the taxes are to be there, we need to open platforms with these telecoms. We can open an education platform whereby it either has zero taxes. You know, we had a levy on COVID, on OTT, we had OTT. And the OTT was specific to certain platforms. It did not apply to all platforms. We can have this educational platform with telecoms where you can say this is an education platform until we abuse it, because I am very sure we shall also abuse it in one way or the other. But we can have these arrangements whereby specific categories of people can apply for this to enable them. This internet is not fair. It is so embarrassing that my phone, I use more than 30 GBs a month. For what reason? Not business. I am not doing even research. I do research maybe I think 10%. I am not doing, but I use more than 30 GBs for heaven's sake. Why would I use that loads of? And also, sometimes it runs out before the end of the month. So some things we need to sit down and levy them accordingly, put specific, not to apply to everyone. I am not running a business with my phone, but I need data that is equivalent to that of the business. So how can a parent afford 100,000 of data only. Yes, I can afford to say that I will buy data for 100,000, but that is rent for someone. That is school fees that someone has failed to pay 50,000 elsewhere. So this that applies to Anderson cannot apply to Godwin and everyone for some reasons. And I think this is where we have a weak legislative house, whereby they don't scrutinize into these things. They want only do corridor, legislation and debates. So these things are really Scott. I can't discuss them and finish because I am angry with certain things and I want to quarrel sometimes. I don't know where to quarrel to or with who, but they are broad and we must appreciate the terrain.
Anderson, you've elaborated there very well. In case you need research on how internet is being used well without so much data, I think Makerere has created a platform with both Airtel and MTN, where their learners are able to access their e-material online at Makerere's libraries, online libraries, without paying a penny. So that could be a good place for you to start. Now let's move to Mr. Okware, who joined us again. Mr. Okware, you seem to be boiling. Seems like you have some question to ask Anderson. So I'm going to call upon you. Do you have anything to respond to Anderson before we move to Irene?
Kindly, I'm not boiling per se. I've just loved, honestly speaking, I always love Anderson's submission. At times, even when he has been on television disseminating his information, he does it in a very objective way, which makes him a unique leader. Just at times, Anderson kindly always allow, in most cases, if you're in the position of leadership, you have to take all the stones. So at times, the stones come to you simply because you are the one whom we should direct them to. But as an individual, I've always followed you, and I love the way how you approach things. Now, my only challenge is, Anderson, you talked about the issue of, yes, it was your personal opinion, whereby the government should come in and say, yes, let them use this as an opportunity to better the private schools. Yes, the government schools, to match the standard of private schools, which is 100% correct. But one time I had an opportunity, I was invited by the Ministry of Education to participate in the National Teachers Conference 2019. Yeah, I think it was 2019, 2018, 2019, 2018 there. 2019, yes. But one of the things which even the president himself admitted, our president of Uganda, that is President Yoweri Museveni Kaguta, he said that the biggest percentage of civil servants are in education. And he also said both in private and the public, they have a very big number of the elites being the teachers. And he said something about seeing ways on how the government should come in to support the private schools, simply because in that meeting or in that conference, the Private Schools Association of Wakiso talked about it because the government doesn't support the private schools. And he said, yes, it's a role and the responsibility. So, Mr. Anderson, to cut the long story short, I strongly believe that it is the responsibility of the husband in the house to buy all the needed ingredients and the food, to give them to the cook. And it is very, 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 it is bad manners. That is the simplest word. Bad manners, taxing your cook. Whenever I hear people from the government talking about that schools don't pay taxes, that is a big lie. In Uganda, you and me, we pay more indirect taxes than the direct taxes. So it simply means even schools pay tax. MTN doesn't pay any single tax, neither does Airtel. It is us, the people, who pay the taxes for them. Because whenever we buy airtime, they tax our money. So there is no single entity that pays tax from their own money. Whoever pays tax in Uganda pays it from your money, my money. So no one doesn't pay tax. Because if a school buys books, don't they pay tax? When they pay tax? if a school buys food, and then they pay tax. So I believe this is the right time whereby our dear government would at least come out with a motherly hand to bail out teachers and schools. Then finally on that, you promised us the 20 billion. We don't know where it went. Personally, I wasn't seeking for it, but I wanted to find out. I remember last year I went to Microfinance Support Center, but their tongue was very heavy. They didn't know where the money was. And I came up with one. I just made my conclusion that these people don't know where the money is. And even what I saw on TV when they said that these people ate teachers' money, it is not true. I don't know whether that money came out. So Anderson, kindly, it is your responsibility as our government, because you are our mothers and you are our fathers, to support schools regardless of the outcome. I think, Anderson, let me make this clear, very loud and clear. Most of the people, I've had so many people, including the president, he said it. So if you ever get a chance, and if I ever get a chance, I'll try to elaborate to him in the best way possible. People say that private schools make a lot of money. The truth is, private schools that make a lot of money are not even 10% in the nation. 90 or 95% of private schools, they just survive. They live on loans, they survive on loans. But the ones that make money, yes, they are there, but a handful, very few schools. So don't start crucifying us and crucifying the entire education fraternity because of a few schools that make billions of profits that are reflected in the accounts. But so many schools don't make money, Anderson. Kindly, I think that is one thing which I do understand, because personally, I've worked with over 5,000 schools. Personally, 5,000. I've worked with directly, not indirectly. In my phone, this simple phone, I have over contacts of over 2,000 teachers whom I talk to directly, and sorry, school directors whom I talk to directly. So their plight is extremely alarming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okware. I hope Anderson got the point. We shall get back to him later. So we are going to move to Irene. The ladies have waited patiently. Irene and Edith, thank you for waiting. So Irene, this is your question. I asked Anderson about the little care given to schools, the fact that Chikubo is open, the fact that so many things are open, but the government hasn't considered opening schools. The government seems not to even have a plan of opening schools. The government seems not to be making any serious progress as far as doing research on how best schools can operate, despite the existence of COVID. So my question to you is, given that background, do you think the government of Uganda takes the learning of its children seriously? Irene, kindly unmute so you can be able to speak.
Okay. Are we together?
Yeah, that's okay now.
Okay. Yes, I got from you that the government hasn't done anything for the schools, and the government is not planning to reopen schools. In the first place, I want to appreciate the government for the few efforts like online study materials and so on, which some of us got, others did not. And then I see there are some online TV teachings and so on. However, these things are not applicable everywhere. Some children cannot access all these things. I don't know what the government is planning. Reopening of schools is very good, but if again we are dying, I don't think it is good to open schools, because if these children die, we will have nobody to teach. In the first place, this government, I appreciated one thing about it, the fact that the government was able to close schools in time. Me as a teacher, that very day when they closed, they put lockdown, I was going to meet already someone who has COVID. Who knows, I was going to be dead by now. So the reopening of schools, to me, as a person, I'm not seeing it very bad, despite the fact that in my first submission, I'd say that many girls are getting pregnant. But it is better to be pregnant, alive, than going to school and dying of COVID-19. So what I can say is, I don't know how that children need to be educated despite the COVID-19. Yes, they've put efforts, which efforts are not okay for children who are disadvantaged. Children who are in villages, in rural areas, they don't have these TVs. People don't even know, many people don't have smartphones. They don't know issues to do with the links, downloading, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm seeing a difference. There is going to be a difference between children in urban centers and the children in the village settings. Children in urban centers are getting some kind of teachings in their homes because they are going to set for rural children different things, shallow things, and urban children, which is not even a good thing. Anyway, we are not going to blame the government because at the end of it all, life first before all these other things. So I'm encouraging the government to put more effort on what they already have on ground so that our children will not remain like people who have nothing to do. They still have their future, but we again have COVID-19. I have no stand here. I'm actually confused if you hear from my submission. I don't know if I should, if I'm to advise the government, I don't know if I should tell the government to reopen schools or not, because I'm equally at a fixed. Life is very important and school is very important. So I leave it upon them to see how they can bring both these together. Thank you.
Okay, that was a very powerful submission, Irene. Let's move to Edith, the other panelist that has been waiting very patiently for her turn. So Edith, we've seen religious leaders running to court. And as a matter of fact, they've even gone as far as the East African Court of Justice. They petitioned the court in Arusha saying they want churches open, that churches play an important role in the social development of this country, the economic role of this country, and without churches, the government and the country stands to lose. Some have even accused the government of going against churches. So I want to understand, how come we are not getting the same from schools? How come no person has yet gone to court to say that let's have schools open? Does that show that our society is more concerned about the religious and church or aspect of life as opposed to the aspect of school and learning for our children? Or are the teachers the problem? Because, well, if teachers could organize themselves, perhaps they too would have been in court. That's your question, Edith.
Thank you very much.
Okay, just before you come in,
Thank
let
you
me
very
ask
much,
Irene to
Godwin.
mute. Just a second, let me ask Irene to mute her microphone. Irene, please mute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Godwin. I don't think our society takes education seriously. In fact, if you're to look at our country, Uganda, people here take education seriously. Earlier alone, Anderson was talking about ladies in the Nakawa market doing anything to make sure their children go to school. The same applies to peasants everywhere in this country. People want their children to be educated. And churches fighting to be opened. When it comes to school, it's critical. It's different. These are young people. And I think, yes, the government is doing its best to protect the young people and also protect us, the teachers, because we can easily succumb to COVID even compared to the young people. We should not look at whether education is like we don't have serious people who are there fighting for schools to be opened or something. We should look at the end of the day. The end game, Godwin, is education. Do we have education going on for young people? When you look at other countries, even though there was a lockdown, their governments, and other and other partners made sure that young people or students, pupils were accessing education facilities through manuals and different things. I love the way Anderson said, you know what, this is good. Government should be selfish. In his opinion, he thinks government now should use this time to selfishly empower the education in government schools. And that is right. But you wonder, I just want you to know, people, education cannot wait. If we are to be realistic, who are the most affected? Are they learners in private schools? If you look at schools like SETA, if you look at schools like Maryland, if you look at private schools, they are doing their best to make sure their students access education, like any education manuals and other learning facilities. But when it comes to the rural areas, government schools are more than private schools in rural areas. If you look at Karamoja, if you look at where I come from in Western Uganda, if you go to districts like Rukunjiri, Chihihi, Kabale, there are more government schools than even private schools. You will find private schools in towns, in cities. But what has the government done to empower the schools in rural areas right now? At these schools, have they been able to access any education and academic documents to help? Okay, the radios failed. True. The TVs, these are schools even where learners cannot access televisions. They don't even have access to the internet. We struggle with network. Even where I am, it is hard to get online. You have to look for a certain place. But what can be done? I think let us look at solutions. Let us end the blame game. But what can government do to empower these rural schools? In cities, parents are able to afford these phones. If Chikubo is open right now, you'll have even people you don't expect, people who even earn 100,000. They can afford a smartphone. They can try their best to put data and at least students share their academic documents. But when we look at rural schools, Godwin, earlier you talked about Chanam Kakan, Nepak, Zombo. What can the government do? In the first phase of the lockdown, some books were sent out, but only for senior 1 and senior 2. How about other classes? How about primary schools? Can we have academic books? Can we have, because I believe that there must be libraries somewhere. Can these children sit under lamps, read something, be committed? Because at the end of the day, we are going to face a problem. It is going to be very straining to get these people to get out of their comfortable world to come and do what? To come and get back to school and, and get used to the school norms and everything. The government should not promise unachievable things. For example, talking about radio stations, a radio per, a radio per homestead and something. It needs little money to produce. For example, there are teachers that can be conducted. The ministry has, there is a curriculum center in Uganda. These people can be contacted. They can set up some work that can go and these people in rural areas can, access manually, read, so that their minds do not switch off. Their mindset about education does not change. Also, the truth is that these government schools are even more vulnerable in this situation. And, like I said, they are the highest, they are the most in rural settings. So something can be done. Education material can be provided to these areas, can be given to these children, so that it is all about dealing with their mindset. It is all about making sure that they stay focused. Even if it took 3 years, can they get back? Can they be hungry for school? But when you just leave them there, I'm telling you, these children, these students in rural areas, it is going to be difficult to get them back to school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So let's move to Peter. And now this is the final round of questions. So you also make sure that when you're done submitting, you make your conclusion in the interest of time. So Peter, you've just told us of how you have the contact of 2,000 school directors in your phone, how you directly work with 5,000 schools. It's not the best time for teachers, and I'm sure you know that better than most of us here. What I want to ask of you is, at this point in time, what advice do you have for teachers out there, especially the private school teachers in the rural areas? What should they be doing? How should they be spending their time? What skills can they learn? I mean, whatever you want. So what advice do you have for these teachers?
All right, thank you. I do believe one of the things, firstly, I appreciate Madam Irene, Edith, and Anderson for the good points that are being articulated. How I wish everyone could be hearing and listening to them so that we can try to see what we can pick out and use them for our own benefit as a nation. Yes, I believe one of the things that we should do mainly as teachers in the rural setting, firstly, we should do what they call a needs assessment, whereby a person has to identify, yes, things might not be moving in the right direction in terms of their survival and their general welfare, but what do we have at hand that can enable you move ahead? If there are gardens, engage in farming. Currently, I'm an individual that I'm in town, but right now I have roughly like 3 to 4 acres of beans, maize, and yeah. So I'm planning at least so that they can grind them. Then, yeah, I think milling, not grinding them, sorry. Then at least we can distribute them to some of the teachers who might be very vulnerable at the moment. But my appeal would be for us not only to always, even if when the lockdown is over, we shouldn't always focus on class. We should be competent and complete teachers who should have an extra skill. And that is one thing which I always tell to school directors, that we should start a new, because we are going into a new era whereby a teacher shouldn't stay in a school from 7 to 7 or from 7 to 9 at night, which is very bad. So at least people should be given their time to use their overtime in ways that can benefit them as teachers. You find that one of the cancer again which is destroying our schools is this unhealthy competition. So Anderson talked about something which is very correct. You find that profits from the school, instead of investing in the teachers, so that the teachers at the end of the day, if they are not also doing well, they can't be having, teachers don't have a fallback plan. So this has been a litmus situation, as I said before. Everyone has a role to play, whereby me, a person who might be the rural school, what I have to do, if there are gardens, engage in farming. If the gardens are not there, look within your community. Do the homeschooling, even if people are giving you 200, but within your community, in order not to spread the virus beyond, but at least within the community, because at the end of the day, children interact from within. Then the other thing which I would also encourage teachers to do in rural and also in urban, to engage, to use this time to learn so many things that will make them competent and complete teachers, not to lament, not to complain, and not to spend most of their time watching unproductive things. Godwin, this is my potential to, you would agree with me. Currently, we started a television. It's an online television. It is called Teachers TV Africa. I got that idea because we wanted to start a TV program basically to teach. And one of the television, which I won't mention, it is one of the television which talks about how the government isn't doing enough. But for them, they couldn't accommodate us. Their main aim was profit. So we started that program. We started that program basically with an objective of supporting ourselves as teachers and schools. I'm going to share the link with you. But we should ask ourselves a simple question before I go off. How do we invest our time in things that matter in our lives? what do we do like as teachers? You find a teacher, a person who has taught for 10 years, but with the same material. They don't change. They don't improve. You tell them to save, people don't want to save. And at the end of the day, people, we have a big disease, which I believe Godwin kind of think about it, or now we can have so many discussions on this. People don't want to learn. People just want to earn. That is a very big challenge. And the more we might put the blame on the government, which is 100% wrong, that is our community or individual role. People should invest a lot in learning than in earning. Thank you very much. That is my parting shot. Let me share the link.
Okay, thank you very much. As we wait for the link, let me invite.
That is our link.
Awesome. We've received it. So, Irene, what is your final advice to the government over the continued closure of institutions of learning across the country?
Sorry, pardon. It was breaking. I didn't get you well.
So I simply asked, as your parting shot, what is your advice to government over the continued closure of schools? Yeah, if you met the president today, what would you tell him about that?
Thank you. My advice to the government is that government should look for all ways possible of reaching out to the rural people. When it comes to the rural setting, e-learning or virtual learning cannot work because we have challenges of network and so on and so forth. So what the government should do is, at first I heard the government saying that they are going to give out hard copy materials to these children in the rural setting. But time reached when I consulted from villages like that, those materials did not reach those villages. So government should give to those rural settings, if it means putting a lot of money, printing and photocopying materials. That is the way to go. There is nothing these children can do apart from hard copy materials that can reach them. And the materials going is one thing. How to make use of it is yet another. But I pray that the government takes it into consideration, gives a special attention to the rural children by sending these materials home. Those learners whose parents can guide them will guide. Of course, when you are dealing with the public, not everything is always perfect. So they send, they'll do follow-up. Those learners who can get them, at least let it go up to the hands of the LC1 and let the follow-up be done. When you just send materials and you don't do follow-up, you know people can do whatever they want with those materials. So let the government send hard copy materials to these people and let these children access them and keep let them be kept busy during the lockdown. Thank you. I submit.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that one other time we'll have you and you become a regular panelist on this discussion, given your good submission. So let's ask Edith the final question and our parting shots. So Edith, what is your advice to the students who are home, those who have been there since last year, and those who don't even know when they'll go back to school? So briefly answer that, and then we shall summarize with Anderson.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, Godwin, I missed the question.
So students have been home, some since last year. What's your advice to the students as they stay home? Are there things they, as a teacher, are there activities you can advise that they engage in? Are there new skills they can learn? How best, in your view as a teacher, should these children spend their time? I mean, if you are talking to your son or daughter in this situation, what would you tell them about the way forward?
Okay, thank you so much, Godwin. So to the students and to parents, please protect your girls, protect your boys. And if you have an opportunity to teach other skills to your children, please do it. There are so many things that these young people can learn. They can get into fashion and industry. Yes, at some point it will need a degree or something, but it also requires talent. Talent is even better when it comes to such an industry. They can engage into bakery. Yes, they involve them in the activities that you do. As a parent, like I always tell some of the parents that I know personally, if you have a business, let your child operate with you, because these are life skills that they need for their future. But also, you must control their movements. Like in the, earlier as we were young, much as you had to do this, we did business with my mother throughout. At the age of 9, we were already, baking and doing a lot of things with her. But she was always there to follow up where you're going. If you had other plans, this plant would be something else for you if she gets to know. So parents must get involved. Get involved in whatever activity that your child is getting into. Even when they're using these smartphones, please get involved. Get to know what they are doing there. Let's create that parental-child relationship that can enable your children, to be free with you, help you to inspire them more. To the students and those who are going to school and others, please be safe, protect yourselves. The closure of schools doesn't mean the end of the world. Get involved in other activities. You can do a lot of things that will in future earn you a lot of money. Look deep into you and find out what you're very passionate about, and please, and try to invest time in it, and you never know, it's going to pay off one day. Thank you so much, Godwin, for hosting us. Thank you so much for the invitation, CCG.
Thank you very much, Edith, for accepting our invitation and participating in this discussion. Let's finish with Anderson. Anderson, I'm going to ask, you've already talked to the teachers, so I'm going to ask that for the final time, as your concluding remarks, what advice do you have for the teachers, pupils, the students, and the parents who are watching this conversation? And indeed, many of them watch this conversation on our YouTube channel. What advice do you give them? What should they be doing as schools remain closed? What activities and all that, briefly?
Thank you. Thank you, Godwin. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Now, most importantly is most of us have not harnessed the opportunity of agriculture, farming, and what yet we are in rural settings, rural areas. And the economic and education aspect that is biting now is now biting more in rural areas, but also where it would have not happened. So let's involve our children in agriculture, in farming, because it consumes most of the idle time of children. And the idle time is as a result of not being involved in some things. But if one is involved and they spend their time, prime time, by the way, there is prime time for everyone, which is morning to the afternoon. In the afternoon, one is tired to go hunting for evil, or even evil hunting for them. So let's involve children in these engagements. Going forward, I told you we are already undressed, but in the process of covering ourselves, we shouldn't be doing it as if we are. Let's not panic, by the way, because if we panic, we are going to lose it. Let's appreciate the terrain that we are operating in. It's as if we are in war. You see, in war, there are several terrains. And once you appreciate and take advantage of the terrains, you can easily win. But if you panic and you fail to appreciate the terrain, you can easily be, you can lose out. So let's involve our children in specific activities. If they are not there, instead of keeping children in town, take children to farms, to gardens. If you had never appreciated it and you have some money on you, these things of growing our children on phones and this lavish life of movies and TV, children are watching everything we are seeing. They are watching these soaps. They are watching things that are attracting them. TV is entertainment, and entertainment is as a result of someone's art to attract those who must watch it. So let us not fall prey to what is scripted and what is written by someone to attract your mind. That is exactly what they want, and they achieve it when you fall prey to it. So TV is not a good parent to children. And since it's not a good parent, our children spend much time on TV and phones and the internet and where there is selected content. Selected, not the best, but selected for specific reasons. And most of those reasons are not good for children. They are not even good for adults. Secondly, we are neglecting the issue of drugs. And drugs are consuming young people to the extent that now they are running away from their families. Peer pressure is becoming another thing. Bad influence, bad peers, bad friends, things also that our children are falling for. That's where they end up with pregnancies because of the attractions they see, the time they spend on WhatsApp, the time they spend on social media. They end up, meeting people they don't know. Most of them are going to father children of people they don't know, they will never trace, who have blocked them on social media, who have run away completely. So most of these things is that we have not appreciated the consequences of whatever we have exposed our children to. And that is going to be costly. But it is not late yet. We still have time to redeem what is not yet lost. And that can only be done if we now, read back the script. How did we reach here? How did my children get pregnant? How did my children get into this? We are going to find that there is laziness. I was talking to someone who was finding it, even plausible to discuss on national television that it is okay for men to run away from their family. We should have every reason to stick to our families, to stick to our people, to stick to our children, to make sure that we protect. Let us not see ourselves as curses. You look at your wife as a curse. You look at your children as a problem that you must run away from, and you have another family elsewhere that there is a responsibility you have that you're trying to run away from. So these are all things we should harness at individual level, make analysis of ourselves, where it is not good, but we must go for that. Otherwise, if we are going to look for convenience after convenience all the time, we are going to miss out. We are going to put our generation, our young people, our children at stake, because we are looking for convenience. Nothing is ever easy. It is for a fact. Nothing is going to come just like that. We must put effort in each and everything that we do, in each and everything that we have responsibility for, and in even national building. We are not going to sit and wait Anderson to do everything. No. Wherever you are, you have a responsibility to create order, to advocate for order, to contribute to community norms and disciplines in our areas. Let us not sit and think that someone in a position is all-knowing. That is only to God. Someone may be in a position, but their understanding is also their success. So let us not sit there and say there is someone who is supposed to do this. Where I am unable, yet I was supposed to, but I wasn't. Let's share ideas. Let's make sure that we put effort in each and everything that we do. I submit, Godwin.
Thank you very much, Anderson. Thank you very much to the other panelists. You've all been superb. To our viewers, thank you very much for continuously watching the community show. This is the 5th session, and we shall have the 6th next week. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will get a lot of content of similar kind and even better. So I hope that all the stakeholders that have been following have listened in, and I hope that you subscribe for the parents and students to the link that Mr. Okware shared, that is going to also be shared in the comments here, of their TV that is engaged, the teachers' TV that has a lot of learning. Thank you very much for God and my country. Adio.